Looking through the crystal ball, can you picture this? And it isn't sabotage.
Ciao and welcome to Gio's Paintbrush, where 5 minutes is all it takes to be blown away by one of the world's greatest artists. Today we'll take a peek into the one-of-a-kind art of Vincent Van Gogh, the 19th century Dutch genius who started out his life wanting to save the world, quite literally as a minister and teacher to the rural poor in his native Holland, and ended it in violence and despair on July 29, 1890, after lingering for 2 days with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. I'm always suspicious of troubled genius, believing that too often they're more troubled than genius, and that the wildly eccentric, even mad artist can be affected rather easily, and that sometimes the persona takes on a life of its own, helping mediocre art appear more original and more intriguing than it really is. But in Van Gogh's case, this much is clear. His artistic vision was entirely unique and his own. His art continues, more than a century after his death, to interest and challenge and please us. It's also true that his psychological or emotional demons were all too real, in the end, all too much for Vincent to bear. Van Gogh was an expressionist, a late 19th, early 20th century artistic movement that opposed the Academy, the tried and true, unofficial rules of painting, and instead sought to capture the truth and reality of their own individual emotions, of their emotional response to the world around them. For the Expressionists, portraying life as it really appeared, naturalistically, took a back seat to communicating this emotional truth. And unlike Impressionism, which sought to portray the world as each individual artist perceived it in a moment in time, with the unique color and light experienced in that moment, Expressionism was not about remaining true to one's perception, but instead to one's feelings, with the expression of honest individual emotion as the highest possible truth and the primary purpose of art. Thus Expressionists, including Van Gogh, employed distorted or exaggerated forms in their work, used color in unusual ways, created unnatural proportions, and played loose with perspective, all to communicate the greater truth of their emotional response to the world. Today then, we'll consider Van Gogh's The Bedroom at Arles, oil on canvas, 1889. Thanks for joining us. Here we see Van Gogh's small sleeping room at Arles, France, as it made the artist feel in 1889, 1 year before his suicide. On the most immediate level, this piece is about home, not just home as a physical structure, but also a place that evokes that special feeling of home, the feelings of comfort and security, and of being at complete ease, sheltered temporarily from the anxieties, obligations, and the unknowns that exist in the world beyond. The perspective of the piece practically places the viewer in the painting, with the comfortably worn wooden floorboards, painted with shades of cheerful green and pink, certainly not common to wooden floors, but employed because they communicate his feelings toward this space, extending into the foreground, nearly beyond the foreground, almost through the viewer, in effect bringing us right into Van Gogh's room. There are elements of the room, including the colorful depiction of the floor, the almost cartoon-like form and coloring of the furniture and pictures hanging on the wall, and the soft, pillowy treatment given the entire top of the bed, that reveal Van Gogh's view of his room at Arles as a cheerful, warm abode, a simple but welcoming retreat from the world. At the same time, I experience other feelings with this painting, caused, I think, by the east wall leaning inward, almost appearing to be closing in on the room, and by the bed blocking, partially, the door on the east wall, with the door on the opposing wall blocked by a chair, feelings of isolation, suffocation, perhaps even an instability, anxiety, and fragility. While one may interpret this as the artist's complex understanding of the concept of home, can we ever really escape fully from the pressures of the world around us, even for a brief period of time? Another way to read the work is as a psychologically revealing study of Van Gogh's own lifelong struggle to relate to the world, to find that sense of home, of his place, and to keep his anxieties and frustrations and pain from closing in on him. It was while living in this house that Van Gogh threatened his roommate, the artist Paul Gauguin, with a knife. Gauguin had grown unhappy with the living arrangement and was poised to leave. Van Gogh was sure not easy to get along with. Then Van Gogh severed a portion of his own ear, sending the bloody ear to a horrified woman in Arles, a prostitute. Vincent's brother Theo had Vincent placed in a sanitarium after this incident, and while Van Gogh continued to produce amazing works of art, he ultimately took his own life. While Van Gogh clearly experienced at least the symptoms of manic depression, The Bedroom at Arles is more than autobiography. It captures something very human and universal. Our desire, our need for a safe, warm shelter, physical, psychological, and emotional, as well as the anxiety and sense of vulnerability that every human being experiences too. As Van Gogh himself once said, "I want to get to the point where people say of my work that man feels deeply." In this sense, he certainly succeeded. Thanks for joining us.
I couldn't picture it like I could when I